In this video, we will look at the TimeSheets and TimeCard function of the Celayix Team Xpress app. So, to get to the TimeSheets or TimeCards function, what we want to do is go on our menu down here at the bottom and select the TimeSheets icon. All right, so in here, this now gives us two options. We have TimeSheets up here, and we also have My TimeCard. Let's start with My TimeSheets. So as you can see here, it shows you dates where you had a shift. Now, this will typically be shifts that have been scheduled by your supervisor, which you could then select. Like, for example, this shift here, if I clicked on it, it says no timesheet submitted. I can select it, and I can now fill in the timesheet, the date the shift occurred, the time I started. If I came in a few minutes late, I could put that in. If I left a few minutes late, I could put that in, etc., and I can adjust it like that. You can see the customer, site, and service are all filled in for me because the shift was scheduled. There is an option to create unscheduled timesheets, and that would be an option that your supervisor would have to set up for you, where you would just create this all from scratch. But typically it's done based on what was already scheduled for you. You'll notice down here it's a status submitted, so you'll leave it in that status, and this is where you can put a note. You can check with your supervisor, but typically this is where you would put in an explanation. For example, maybe you left 10 minutes early, maybe you left 10 minutes late, and you want to explain the reason why. You could put the example text in here. Here is my reason. You can type whatever message you need to there. This will be something that your supervisor can see when they're reviewing and approving your timesheet. So it may be important to actually put a good reason in here, especially if you're hoping to get paid an extra 30 minutes or an extra 60 minutes because you stayed late. You might want to give a good reason. Otherwise, your supervisor may not approve your timesheet. All right, so keep that in mind. And all you have to do at this point is, if you're happy with everything that's set, you just click on Save. And then your timesheet gets submitted. So you can see here the 12th of June, timesheet submitted. So you can see the status. Now, what will happen next is, at some point later in the day or later in the week, your supervisor will be going through and reviewing and approving these. So if you come back here later and check, you may see the status change from submitted to approved, or you may possibly see it be put into a declined status if the supervisor rejects your claimed timesheet. So just come back here periodically and check and see what happens with the status to verify if it's been approved or not. All right, so that's pretty much it. You can go through the rest of the shifts, of course, and you can do them one at a time like so, and you can go the next day and again submit a timesheet just like that. No problem. Now, when I mentioned about creating one from scratch, that is the Add New button down here, okay, and that may or may not be enabled depending on your company settings. But if you click Add New, this actually lets you create a timesheet from scratch. So you can pick the date, the time, you can actually select a customer, a site, and a service, and then you can fill all this in and submit your timesheet. So same exact process, but instead of the customer site service being set for you, you're actually specifying it because you're telling the supervisor where you were, what time you got there, and so on and so forth. All right. So that's the purpose of the timesheets. Of course, a couple other quick things. If you keep scrolling, you'll seek additional days, okay? And if you're trying to do timesheets for a long period of time and you want to see a month view, just click on the month up here and you can see which days, indicated by these little dots, which days you had shifts on, okay? So you can click on the day with the dot to actually go right to that day. Like if I wanted to go to the 16th and click on it, it takes me right to June 16th, and I can work on that timesheet if that's something that I'm looking to do. All right, so that is the timesheets function. Now the second piece is the My Time card, so let's go to that. And this is showing you basically history, or your work history, okay? So it'll always default you to your current week. So I'm currently in this week here, and I have 0 hours worked. But if I go back to last week with the arrow here, I can see that I have worked 20 hours last week between these dates, all right? So it says 20 hours. And then further down below, what you'll get is a breakdown. So if you had any overtime hours, or if you had training hours, or if you had double overtime, or stat holiday hours, the hours will be broken down here, okay? So in my case, I have 20 hours. They're all considered regular, and that's that. So that's the breakdown here. Now, this just gives you a little idea as far as, what you would be expecting to be paid for this particular week. This indicates that the system tracked you at working 20 hours. Now, if we take it a step further, click on time cards here, you can actually go ahead through each shift and see a little bit in more detail. So, for example, it said 20 hours, but if you wanted to go in and look at each day, you can see 5 hours on Monday, 5 hours on Tuesday, on Wednesday, etc. And you can go through these. And this is, again, an option that may or may not be enabled by your supervisor, but if it is enabled and they've told you to do this, you can actually go through these and mark correct or incorrect, okay? So you can actually make a choice here. You can say, yes, I agree that I did work 5 hours on Monday. I think that's correct. Now notice, once you make a choice, you lose the ability to change your mind. So you can only make one choice here, so do choose carefully. If you accidentally make a mistake and choose the wrong option, you make sure you reach out to your supervisor and let them know that you made a mistake on this, and they can go and fix it for you. The purpose of this is that you can indicate, obviously correct is indicating you agree, which is fine, but the more important thing is you can actually indicate where you think there's a problem. For example, this shift on Tuesday, it says I worked 5 hours. Well, let's say this is a mistake and I actually had to stay an extra hour. I should say till 1500 or 3 o'clock. Well, I could say incorrect, okay? Now, I don't specify a reason here or anything like that, but what this does is this helps the person who's running payroll or billing for your company. When they're looking through their reports, this is going to show up for them. They're going to see that you've disagreed with this shift. It doesn't mean that they're just automatically going to, give you more hours, but what they are going to do is they may reach out to you with a question as far as why you disagree with the hours on this shift. And then you can have a discussion and explain to them that the hours are wrong because, and then they of course can make the decision on whether or not it needs to be changed. Okay? So that's the purpose of the My Time Cards, and that's about it. Again, you can scroll through the days just by scrolling here, or if you're on your mobile app, you can just scroll with your thumb and choose different days and review it that way. All right, and that about wraps it up for this particular video. Talk to you next time.